Hour 60. 3 days after treatment began, Prince Vorthek opened his eyes. Rin had been in the observation room when it happened. She had gone home twice to sleep, but she kept coming back, drawn by something she could not name. Now she stood at the window with Maltek and Relkoth, watching as the prince slowly regained consciousness. Inside the medical bay, Hai was checking his vital signs for what seemed like the 1,000th time. She noticed his eyes opening before any of the machines registered the change in his brain activity. "Welcome back, Your Highness," she said quietly. The prince tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Dalmi immediately brought water, helping him take small sips through a straw. After a moment, he tried again. "How long?" His voice was rough, barely a whisper. 3 days, Hay replied. "You have been through a lot. Do not try to move too much yet." The prince looked around the medical bay, seeing the simple human equipment, the clear tubes still connected to his arms, the analog monitors displaying his vital signs. His gaze settled on Hay. "You are human. Yes. You saved me." Hay smiled slightly. "I did my job. Now you need to do yours. Rest, eat, and let your body finish healing." In the observation room, Maltek made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. His scales flashed through every color Rin had ever seen and several she had not. "He is going to live. He is truly going to live." Within hours, news spread through the Eternal Fortress. The prince was awake. The prince was recovering. The human doctor had succeeded where everyone else failed. Officers and diplomats who had dismissed Earth as primitive now asked questions. How did the humans do it? What techniques did they use? Could they teach others? Tormund visited the medical bay personally. He stood at the foot of the prince's bed. His forearms crossed in what Rin had learned was a gesture of respect. "Your Highness, the entire coalition rejoices at your recovery." The prince, still weak but growing stronger by the hour, nodded. "General, I understand I have you to thank for allowing the human doctor to treat me." "The decision was not easy," Tormund admitted. "I nearly refused. I thought it was a waste of precious time. But you did not refuse." "No. Ambassador Rin convinced me to at least ask. And Dr. Hay convinced me that hope is not the same as foolishness." The prince turned to look at Hay, who was updating her physical notebook in the corner. "Doctor, I wish to speak with you." He came to his bedside, still holding her notebook. "Yes, Your Highness. Why?" The prince asked simply. "You do not know me. Earth has only been in the coalition for 2 years. Your species had nothing to gain from saving me. Why did you risk your reputation, your time, your effort?" Hay seemed surprised by the question. "You needed help. I am a doctor. That is reason enough." "It is not," the prince insisted. "Every species in the coalition sent their best physicians. All of them gave up when logic said I could not be saved. You did not. Why?" Hay was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. "On Earth, there is an old oath that many doctors take. It is called the Hippocratic Oath. One of its promises is this. First, do no harm. Another is that we will use our skills to help the sick, regardless of who they are." She closed her notebook and looked directly at the prince. "But there is something else. Something that is not in any oath but is in every human doctor's heart. We do not believe in impossible. We believe in difficult. We believe in unlikely. We believe in trying. As long as a patient is alive, there is a chance. And as long as there is a chance, we fight." The prince was silent, processing this. Then he said, "I am in your debt, Dr. Kang Hay of Earth, a debt I can never fully repay." "You do not owe me anything," Hay replied. "Just get better. That is payment enough." 1 week later, the prince was able to leave the medical bay. His scales had returned to their natural bright green and gold. His hearts were functioning at 92% capacity. The toxin was completely gone from his system. Physically, he would make a full recovery. Hay and her team prepared to return to Earth. They packed their simple equipment, their books, their mechanical tools. Yunbo looked exhausted but satisfied. Dalmi was already thinking about her next patient back home. Before they could leave, Tormund called a formal ceremony in the main assembly hall. Rin attended, along with every major figure in the coalition. The room was filled with hundreds of beings from dozens of species, all gathered to witness something unprecedented. "Dr. Kang Hay," Tormund said, his voice amplified throughout the hall. "You have done what we believed impossible. You saved Prince Vorthek's life using methods we had dismissed as obsolete. You have taught us a valuable lesson. that advancement is not always about newer technology. Sometimes it is about deeper understanding. He gestured to one of his aides who brought forward a small case. Inside was a medal, the Coalition Star of Merit, given only to those who had performed extraordinary service. It is my honor to present you with this recognition, on behalf of all Coalition species. Hai stepped forward and accepted the medal, but she looked uncomfortable with the attention. Thank you, General, but I want to be clear about something. I did not do this alone. Dr. Yunbo and Nurse Dalmi worked just as hard as I did, and the Coalition doctors who tried before me, they are not failures. They did their best with what they knew. Sometimes medicine is about luck as much as skill. You are too modest, Relkoth said, his golden light pulsing warmly. You saw a solution we did not see. That is not luck. That is genius. It is not genius, Hay replied firmly. It is perspective. You were looking forward, trying more advanced solutions. I looked backward to fundamental principles. Both approaches have value. This time mine worked. Next time yours might. Prince Vorthek, now standing without assistance, walked to the front of the assembly. He was dressed in royal armor, looking every bit the warrior prince he was meant to be. Dr. Hay, he said, in my culture, saving a life creates a bond. You are now considered part of my family. You will always have a place of honor in the Drexian kingdom. Hay bowed, a gesture she had learned was appropriate. I am honored, Your Highness. There is one more thing, the prince continued. He turned to address the entire assembly. I have spoken with my father, King Vordan. He agrees with my recommendation. The Drexian kingdom wishes to establish a permanent medical partnership with Earth. We want to learn your methods. We want our physicians trained in human medicine. And we want to ensure that every coalition ship has at least one human doctor on staff. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Crick stood up, his mandibles clicking in agreement. The Krillian Medical Institute supports this proposal. We have much to learn from Earth, Maltek added. The Drexian Medical Corps has already begun drafting a curriculum. We want to understand the fundamentals as humans do. One by one, other species voiced their support. What had begun as skepticism had turned into respect. What had been dismissed as primitive was now recognized as valuable. Rin felt tears in her eyes. Earth, the newest member of the coalition, had just earned its place not through military might or technological advancement, but through compassion, knowledge, and determination. After the ceremony, Rin found Hai preparing to board the medical frigate. The doctor was back in her simple uniform, her medal already packed away in her kit. That was quite a speech, Rin said, about perspective and fundamental principles. Hai smiled tiredly. I meant it. Every species has something valuable to teach. We all see the universe differently. That is what makes the coalition strong. You know you have changed everything, right? Earth will never be seen as primitive again. Maybe, Hay said. Or maybe they will just think I got lucky. Either way, I have patients waiting for me back home. I need to get back to work. Will you come back? To teach? Hay considered this. Perhaps, if they truly want to learn. But I will tell them the same thing I tell all my students on Earth. Medicine is not about equipment or technology. It is about understanding the patient, knowing the fundamentals, and never giving up. Those are lessons that work anywhere in the galaxy. The medical frigate departed an hour later. Rin watched it leave, knowing that the galaxy had changed in a small but important way. Humanity had proven itself not through conquest or dominance, but through the simple act of a doctor rolling up her sleeves and doing her job. In his quarters, Prince Vorthek stood at his window, watching the same frigate disappear into faster-than-light travel. His aide, a young Drexian officer, approached cautiously. Your Highness, the Council wishes to discuss the war strategy. With your recovery, the King believes we can push forward. The prince nodded slowly. In a moment. First, send a message to every Drexian ship in the fleet. Tell them what happened here. Tell them how a human doctor saved my life when everyone else said it was impossible. Yes, Your Highness. What should I tell them about humans? The prince thought about Hay's tired eyes, her steady hands, her absolute refusal to give up even when his heart had stopped. He thought about the 6 minutes of manual compressions, the 48 hours of constant vigilance, the simple tools used with expert precision. Tell them, he said finally, that humans are not the strongest species. They are not the smartest. They are not the most advanced. But they have something more important than any of those things. They have persistence. They have determination. And when they make a promise, they keep it. Hour 12. The prince was still alive. That alone was remarkable. Rin had not left the observation room. She could not explain why she felt so invested in this, but something kept her there, watching through the window as the human medical team worked. She had brought coffee from the human frigate, real Earth coffee, and she sipped it slowly while the alien doctors came and went. Some stayed longer than others. Maltek, the prince's personal physician, had not left at all. He stood at the window, his green scales dim with worry, watching every movement the humans made. Relkoth drifted in and out, his golden light pulsing in rhythm with the prince's hearts. Even Crix returned several times, though he claimed it was only to ensure proper protocol was being followed. Inside the medical bay, the three humans moved with quiet efficiency. Hay checked the dialysis machine every 30 minutes, noting numbers in a physical notebook. Yunbo sat at his computer, monitoring the chemical composition of the filtered blood and adjusting the drug compounds accordingly. Dalmi moved between monitoring stations, checking vital signs by hand even though the machines displayed the same information. "Why does she do that?" Rin asked Maltek quietly, pointing to Dalmi as the nurse pressed her fingers to the prince's wrist, counting heartbeats. "I do not know," the Drexian doctor admitted. "Our monitors are far more accurate than manual measurement, but she checks every 15 minutes regardless. My medical instructor would say she is building a relationship with the patient," came a new voice. Ambassador Krell had entered the observation room, his crystalline body chiming softly. Understanding the rhythm of their body, sensing changes before machines can register them. "That sounds like superstition," Crix said from the corner. "Perhaps," Krell replied. "Or perhaps there is wisdom in old methods that we have forgotten." Hour 20. The prince's vital signs were improving. His hearts beat stronger, reaching 55% capacity. The gray color of his scales showed hints of green starting to return. The medical monitor showed the toxin levels in his blood slowly decreasing. "It is working," Maltek said, and Rin heard wonder in his voice. "The filtration is actually working." Yunbo looked up from his computer, rubbing his eyes. He had been working for 20 hours straight with only brief breaks. Toxin concentration is down by 18%. His kidney function is showing early signs of recovery. Liver enzymes are stabilizing. "How is that possible?" Relkoth asked. "We tried everything and nothing helped. She uses century-old technology and basic chemicals and the prince improves?" "Because the toxin cannot adapt to what it does not recognize as medicine," Hay said, checking the prince's blood pressure manually with an inflatable cuff and a gauge. "To the poison, we are not treating him. We are just moving his blood through tubes. It has no defense mechanism for that." "Elegant," Krell chimed. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution." Hour 28. Rin dozed in a chair, her coffee cup empty beside her. She woke to the sound of concerned voices. Maltek was pressed against the observation window, his scales rippling with anxiety. "What is happening?" Rin asked, suddenly alert. "His temperature is rising," Dalmi reported from inside the medical bay. Her calm voice carried through the speakers. 42 degrees, 43. "Fever response," Hay said immediately. "His immune system is finally strong enough to fight. Yun, prepare compound series C. We need to support his immune response without letting the fever get too high." "On it," Yun called back, his fingers flying across his keyboard. "Should we cool him?" Dalmi asked. "Not yet. Let his body work. Monitor closely." The prince's temperature peaked at 44 degrees, then slowly came back down. Through it all, Hay stayed beside his bed, watching him with those sharp, tired eyes. She did not seem worried. She seemed focused, ready to act if needed. Hour 32. This was when everything went wrong. Rin was watching when the monitors suddenly began to scream. The prince's heart rate spiked, then dropped dramatically. His blood pressure plummeted. Every screen flashed red warning symbols. "Heart's failing," Dalmi shouted. "Primary heart has stopped. Secondary heart is arrhythmic." Inside the medical bay, Hai moved faster than Rin had seen her move before. "Get me the crash cart." "Yun, emergency protocol now." But there was no crash cart. Human medical equipment was not designed for Drexian physiology. Hay looked at the prince, at the monitors, and made a decision. "Dalmi, with me, manual cardiac compression." The nurse was already moving to the other side of the bed. The two women positioned themselves over the prince's massive chest, finding the location of his twin hearts. "What are they doing?" Crix asked, his voice high with alarm. Something we have not done in 3,000 years, Relkoth replied softly. Manual chest compressions. Forcing the hearts to pump by physical pressure. That cannot possibly work, Maltek said, but his voice shook. The prince weighs over 300 kilograms. His chest structure is too dense. In the medical bay, Hai and Dalmi had begun. They pressed down on the prince's chest with all their weight. Their movements synchronized. Press, press, press. Steady rhythm. Rin could see the strain on their faces, the sweat beginning to form on their foreheads. Come on, Hai muttered through gritted teeth. Come on, come on. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. The monitors still screamed. The prince's hearts did not restart. They need to stop, Crick said. This is pointless. They are just delaying the inevitable. No, Rin said quietly. They are fighting. 3 minutes. 4 minutes. Dalmi's breathing was labored now, but her compressions never slowed. Hay's face was red with exertion, her gray hair coming loose from its tie, but she did not stop. Not on my watch. Hay gasped. Not today. 5 minutes. Yunbo had abandoned his computer and was preparing emergency drugs, his hands shaking slightly. The observation room was silent except for the screaming monitors and the rhythmic sound of compressions. 6 minutes. Then, suddenly, one of the monitors changed its tone. A steady beep began. Then another. Primary heart has rhythm, Dalmi panted. Weak but present. Secondary heart responding, Hai added. Keep going. They continued compressions for another 30 seconds, then stopped. Both women stood back, breathing hard, watching the monitors. The prince's hearts continued beating. Slowly, steadily, his vital signs began to stabilize. Maltek's legs gave out. He sat down heavily on the observation room floor, his scales flashing through a dozen different colors. They did it, he whispered. They brought him back. Relkoth's light flared so bright that everyone had to look away. Impossible. 6 minutes without proper heart function. The brain damage alone should be. His brain is fine, Yunbo reported, checking his monitors. Oxygen levels never dropped below critical threshold. The compressions worked. Inside the medical bay, Hai leaned against the wall for a moment, catching her breath. Then she straightened up, retied her hair, and went back to checking the prince's vital signs. Dalmi, increase fluid rate by 20%. His hearts need support. Yun, adjust the compound ratios. His metabolism just went through trauma. Already on it, both replied. Tormund entered the observation room, having been summoned by his staff when the crisis began. Report, he demanded. The prince experienced cardiac failure, Krell explained. The human doctors performed manual resuscitation, successfully. The general stared through the window at Hay, who was now examining the prince's eyes with her small light, checking for neurological damage. She brought him back from death. That is what human doctors do, Rin said, surprised by the pride in her own voice. They do not give up, ever. Hour 40. The prince was stable again. Better than stable. His hearts were now at 70% capacity. His scales were noticeably greener. The toxin levels had dropped by 40%. Hay finally sat down in a chair beside the bed, still watching her patient. Dalmi brought her water and food, which she ate mechanically without taking her eyes off the monitors. When did you last sleep? Dalmi asked quietly. On the frigate. 18 hours ago. You need rest. After he is stable. He is stable now. After he is stable. Hay repeated firmly. In the observation room, the doctors watched in silence. They had witnessed something they thought impossible. Not just the medical success, but the sheer determination. The refusal to accept defeat. The willingness to fight even when logic said fighting was useless, I think. Relkoth said slowly. We have underestimated humans. Clearly, Crix agreed. Maltek stood up, his scales now a bright, hopeful green. I am going to recommend to the king that we establish a human medical exchange program. Our physicians should learn from them. Learn what? Tormund asked. Old techniques? No, Maltek replied. Learn to never give up. The medical observation room exploded with noise. Every doctor tried to speak at once, their translator devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Relkoth's golden light flared bright with agitation. Maltek's scales rippled in the Drexian expression of disbelief. Even Tormund's mandibles clicked so rapidly they sounded like rain on metal. Silence, the general finally commanded, and the room fell quiet. He turned back to Hay, who stood calmly beside the prince's bed, her sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Explain. Hay walked to the observation window where they all stood watching. She held up a small glass slide. I examined the prince's blood under my microscope. The toxin is visible even at low magnification. It looks like small crystals growing and spreading through his cells. We know what it looks like, Crick said impatiently. We have imaged it at the molecular level. What we do not know is how to stop it. That is because you have been trying to destroy it, Hay replied. Every treatment you used was designed to attack the toxin directly. Cellular regeneration tried to rebuild around it. Neural mapping tried to block it. Energy healing tried to dissolve it. Each time the toxin adapted and became stronger. So what do you propose? Maltek asked. If we cannot attack it, how do we stop it? We do not attack it, Hay said. We remove it. Relkoth's light dimmed to a confused orange. Remove it? That is impossible. It has spread throughout his entire body. It is in his blood, his organs, his nervous system. Yes, Hay agreed. So we clean his blood. We flush his system. We use his own body to filter it out, and we support his organs while they heal. The doctors stared at her. Crick spoke first, his voice flat with disbelief. You want to use dialysis. Blood filtration. That is your solution. Combined with other treatments, yes. That is the most primitive. Crick stopped himself, mandibles clicking in frustration. Dr. Hay, dialysis was abandoned thousands of years ago. It is slow, inefficient, and risky. Modern medicine can clean blood at the cellular level in minutes. Why would we use an inferior method? Because the toxin does not recognize it as a threat, Hay explained patiently. The Vectar designed this weapon to defend against advanced medicine. It senses when you try to heal the prince and it fights back. But simple mechanical filtration? The toxin has no defense against that. It is just moving blood through a filter. Maltek's scales shifted to a dark green, which Rin had learned meant he was thinking deeply. Even if that works, the toxin has already damaged his organs. His hearts are failing. His liver cannot process toxins. His kidneys have shut down. Filtration alone will not save him. No, Hay agreed. That is why we do more. We give his body what it needs to heal itself. Synthetic antibodies to boost his immune system. Enzyme inhibitors to slow the crystal growth. Chemical compounds to protect his organs. And we monitor him constantly, adjusting treatment as his body responds. Synthetic antibodies. Relkoth repeated slowly. You mean chemical drugs, pharmaceuticals? Yes. But Drexian physiology is completely different from human physiology. We do not even share the same base proteins. How can you possibly know which drugs will work? Hay allowed herself a small smile. Because biochemistry follows rules. Carbon is carbon. Oxygen is oxygen. The prince's blood carries nutrients and removes waste, just like human blood. His cells need energy, just like human cells. The specifics are different, but the principles are the same. I spent my flight time calculating the proper compounds based on his blood samples. Calculating? Crick sounded incredulous. You mean you guessed? I mean I calculated, Hay said firmly. By hand, based on chemical formulas and biological principles. This is what human doctors learn. We cannot rely on machines to tell us what to do. We must understand the chemistry ourselves. Tormund raised one of his arms, stopping the argument before it could continue. Dr. Hay, your confidence is notable, but the prince has hours to live. Are you absolutely certain this will work? Hay met his compound eyes without hesitation. No, I am not certain. Medicine is not about certainty. It is about probability, knowledge, and skill. I believe my approach has a better chance than doing nothing. That is all I can promise. That is not very reassuring, Maltek muttered. I am not here to reassure you, Hay replied. I am here to save a patient. Now I need access to your pharmaceutical synthesizer and permission to begin treatment immediately. Tormund looked at the other doctors. Relkoth's light pulsed uncertainly. Crix's mandibles had stopped clicking, which meant he was genuinely considering the idea. Maltek was the one who finally spoke. I am the prince's personal physician, he said slowly. I have been with him since he was a hatchling. If there is any chance, even a small one, I must take it. He looked at Tormund. I recommend we allow the human to proceed. I agree, Relkoth added quietly. We have nothing to lose. Tormund was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Very well. Dr. Hay, you have permission to treat the prince. But understand this. If your methods cause him additional suffering, I will stop you myself. Understood, Hay said. She turned to Rin, who had been watching quietly from the corner. I need my team. They are still on the medical frigate. Your team? Tormund asked. You brought others? 2. Dr. Yun Bo, a biochemist, and Nurse Dal Mi, a surgical nurse. I will need them both. Within an hour, Hay's team arrived. Dr. Yun Bo was young, perhaps in his late 20s, with quick movements and sharp eyes. He carried several cases of equipment. Nurse Dal Mi was older, close to Hay's age, with steady hands and a calm expression that reminded Rin of a veteran soldier. The coalition doctors watched as the 3 humans transformed the medical bay into something completely different. They brought in machines that looked ancient, a dialysis unit with clear tubes and simple pumps, monitoring equipment with analog displays, even bags of clear liquid hanging from metal stands. What is that? Crix asked, pointing at the bags. Intravenous fluids. Dal Mi answered as she prepared the lines. Saline solution, electrolytes, and nutrients. Basic life support. Life support, Crix repeated. You're going to keep him alive with salt water. Balanced salt water, Dal Mi corrected. Very specific concentrations. Yun Bo set up his equipment in the corner, a computer, a chemical analyzer, and several reference books. Actual physical books printed on paper. Relkoth drifted closer, fascinated despite himself. You use books? The Luminar asked. Physical information storage? For reference, yes, Yun Bo replied without looking up. He was already deep in calculations, his fingers moving rapidly across a keyboard. Digital systems can fail. Books do not. Primitive, Crix muttered, but he sounded less certain than before. Hay finished connecting the dialysis machine to the prints. The tubes ran from his arm to the machine and back again, creating a circuit. His dark blood flowed through the clear tubes, looking almost black against the white medical bay. Starting filtration now, Hay announced. Yun, what is the drug sequence? Uploading to your display, Yun called back. Starting with compound Series A, then moving to Series B after 2 hours. Dal Mi, vital signs? Heart's at 42% capacity. Respiration shallow but stable. Blood pressure low but manageable. The nurse's voice was steady, professional. Ready to begin. Hay took a deep breath and pressed several buttons on the dialysis machine. It hummed to life, a soft mechanical sound that was almost primitive compared to the silent technology around them. Treatment has begun, she said. Now we wait, watch, and adjust. Tormund stepped closer to the window. How long will this take? Hay checked her watch, an actual mechanical timepiece on her wrist. If everything goes well? 48 hours minimum, possibly longer. And if things do not go well? He did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice was quiet but firm. Then I will do everything in my power to save him anyway. That is what human doctors do. We do not give up. The long wait had begun. The human medical frigate dropped out of faster-than-light travel 18 hours after Rin's request. It was a small ship, barely larger than a transport shuttle, and it looked ancient by coalition standards. The hull was patched in several places, and its engines left a trail of particles that more advanced ships had eliminated decades ago. Rin waited in the docking bay, trying not to show how nervous she felt. She had spoken to Earth Medical Corps directly, bypassing normal diplomatic channels. They had sent someone immediately. She did not know who was coming, only that they were willing to try. When the airlock opened, Rin felt her heart sink a little. She had expected a team of doctors with equipment, maybe even some of Earth's newer medical technology. Instead, one person stepped through the door. Dr. Kang He was not what anyone expected. She was short, barely reaching Rin's shoulder, with gray hair pulled back in a simple tie. Deep lines marked her face, especially around her eyes and mouth. She wore a white coat over a dark blue uniform, and she carried only one bag, a worn leather medical kit that looked like it had traveled across 100 worlds. Ambassador Rin? The doctor asked. Her voice was rough, like she had been shouting or had not slept in days. Yes, doctor. Thank you for coming so quickly. Hai nodded once. Where is the patient? The medical bay is this way, but... Rin hesitated. General Tormund wants to speak with you first. Later, where is the patient? Rin blinked. Doctor, the general is the supreme commander of coalition forces. He wants to... I did not fly 18 hours through space to talk to a general, Hai said, her tone flat. I came to see a patient. Take me to him. Before Rin could respond, a voice echoed through the docking bay. I am afraid I must insist. General Tormund stepped into view, flanked by 2 armed guards. Behind him stood several of the Coalition's chief physicians, Relkoth, the Luminar healer, Chief Physician Maltek from the Drexian Medical Corps, and Senior Surgeon Crix, a Krillian like the General. Hay looked at them all without expression. "You are wasting time." "I am ensuring we do not waste the Prince's final hours," Tormund replied. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of irritation. "Ambassador Rin has informed us that Earth wishes to attempt a treatment. I have agreed to allow this, but only after we establish some basic facts." "Facts like what?" Hay asked. "Like your qualifications," Relkoth said, his golden light pulsing. "I have reviewed Earth's medical database. You are an emergency medicine specialist, not a toxicologist or a biochemist. You have no experience with Vector bioweapons. You have never treated a Drexian patient. Why should we trust you with our prince?" Hay set her medical kit down and crossed her arms. "You should not trust me. You should trust my training. Earth doctors learn to treat anyone, anything, anywhere. We do not have the luxury of specialized equipment or energy healing or cellular regeneration. We have to understand how bodies work at the most basic level. Chemical level," Crick said dismissively. "We abandoned chemistry-based medicine 3,000 years ago. It is too slow, too imprecise, too dangerous. But it works," Hai said simply. "Our medicine works better," Maltek interjected. The Drexian doctor was tall and imposing, his green scales gleaming under the bay lights. "We can regrow entire limbs. We can cure diseases in hours that would take your species months. We can extend life far beyond natural limits. And yet you claim your primitive techniques are superior?" "I do not claim anything," Hay replied. "I only know that your techniques have failed. The prince is still dying." "Yes?" No one answered. That was answer enough. He picked up her kit again. "I read the medical reports during my flight. Every treatment you tried made the toxin stronger. Every advanced technique triggered a new phase of the poison. The Vector designed this weapon specifically to defeat your medicine. They studied how you heal. They learned your patterns. They created something that uses your own technology against you. And you believe your outdated methods will succeed where we failed?" Tormund asked. His tone was skeptical, but Rin thought she heard something else underneath it. Hope, maybe, or desperation. "I believe the toxin is not designed to fight against old methods," Hay said. "The Vector did not expect anyone to use them. Why would they? Every species in the Coalition relies on advanced medicine. Except humans." Relkoth's light dimmed slightly. "That is an interesting theory." "It is not a theory. It is logic." Hay looked at each of them in turn. "Now, I will ask one more time. Where is the patient?" Tormund studied her for a long moment. Finally, he gestured to one of his guards. "Take her to the quarantine ward. But I want all of you to observe." He looked at the other physicians. "If the humans' methods show any sign of harming the prince further, we stop immediately." The medical bay was located in the center of the ship, surrounded by multiple layers of shielding. As they walked through the corridors, Hai asked questions. What were the prince's symptoms? How fast was the toxin spreading? What treatments had been attempted? The other doctors answered reluctantly, still convinced this was a waste of time. When they reached the quarantine ward, Rin saw the prince for the first time up close. He lay on a medical bed designed for Drexian anatomy, which meant it was large enough for 3 humans. His scales, which should have been bright green and gold, were now a dull gray color. His breathing was shallow and irregular. Medical devices surrounded him, displaying information in languages Rin did not understand. "He has maybe 6 hours," Maltek said quietly. "We have stopped all active treatments as you requested. We are only keeping him comfortable now." Hay nodded. She set her kit down and washed her hands in a nearby sink using simple soap and water. The other doctors watched this ritual with confusion. Why wash hands when the air itself was sterilized? Then Hai did something that shocked everyone. She reached out and placed her hand on the prince's chest, right above where his twin hearts were located. She closed her eyes and was still for several seconds. "What is she doing?" Crix whispered to Relkoth. "I believe she is. Feeling his heartbeat?" The Luminar replied, sounding baffled. "Manually." Hay opened her eyes and removed her hand. She took a small device from her kit, something that looked like a metal disc connected to rubber tubes. She placed the disc on the prince's chest in several different locations, listening through the tubes. "A stethoscope," Maltek said in disbelief. "She is using a stethoscope. That device is over 1,000 years old." 1,500 years, Hay corrected without looking up. And it still works. For the next 3 hours, Hay performed her examination. She used tools that looked impossibly primitive to the Coalition doctors. A small light to check the prince's eyes, a rubber hammer to test his reflexes, handheld scanners that were laughably simple compared to the room's advanced medical systems. And most strangely, she used her own hands constantly, pressing on the prince's abdomen, checking his pulse at different points on his body, even smelling his breath. She is practicing medicine like a pre-spaceflight civilization, Crick said to Tormund. This is insane, but the general did not respond. He was watching Hay's face. She was completely focused, her expression calm and thoughtful. She took samples of the prince's blood using a simple needle and syringe, then examined them under a basic microscope she had brought from Earth. Finally, Hay straightened up and turned to face the assembled group. Her expression had not changed, but Rin thought she saw something in the doctor's eyes. Confidence. Well, Tormund demanded. What have you learned? Hay rolled up her sleeves. I can save him. The council chamber aboard the Eternal Fortress was silent. Not the comfortable kind of silence that came with peace, but the heavy silence that pressed down on everyone, like a physical weight. Ambassador Rin stood at the back of the room, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the faces of the alien dignitaries as they processed the news. Supreme General Tormund stood at the center podium. He was a Krillian, which meant his body was covered in dark blue chitinous plates that clicked softly when he moved. His forearms were crossed over his chest and his compound eyes seemed to look at everyone in the room at once. He had just delivered the worst possible news to the Galactic Coalition. Prince Vorthek is dying, the general said again, his translator device turning his clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. We have exhausted every option. Every species in the coalition has sent their best physicians. All have failed. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The prince was not just any patient. He was the heir to the Drexian kingdom, the most powerful military force in the coalition. Without the Drexians, the war against the Vector Empire was lost. Everyone knew it. Rin had been at the flagship for 3 weeks now, serving as a junior diplomatic attaché for Earth. She was still new to this world of galactic politics. Humans had only joined the coalition 2 years ago, and most species still saw them as primitive newcomers. She had learned to stay quiet and observe. How long does he have? Asked Ambassador Krell, a tall being made of crystalline structures that chimed when he spoke. Hours, Tormund replied flatly. Perhaps a day at most. The Vector bioweapon is unlike anything we have encountered. It adapts to every treatment. Each attempt to cure it only makes it stronger. Rin thought about what she had heard in the medical briefings. The prince had been wounded in combat 3 weeks ago. At first it seemed like a minor injury, just a scratch from a Vector blade. But the wound would not heal. Then the prince began to deteriorate rapidly. His scales turned gray. His twin hearts began to beat irregularly. He could not eat or drink. The coalition's best doctors had tried everything. The Krillian neural surgeons attempted to map and block the toxin in his nervous system. They failed. The Drexian regeneration specialists used their own species' advanced healing techniques. The prince only got worse. The Luminar healers, beings of pure energy who could manipulate life force itself, spent days trying to cleanse his system. Nothing worked. We must inform King Vordan, said another delegate, a Luminar named Relkoth who shimmered with soft golden light. He must prepare for succession. The king already knows, Tormund said. He has given his consent to let his son pass in peace. No more treatments. No more experiments. We will make the prince comfortable in his final hours. Rin felt something twist in her chest. She had never met Prince Vorthek, but she had seen him once from a distance. He was young for a Drexian, only 30 years old. His scales had been bright green and gold, and he had carried himself with the confidence of someone who knew his place in the universe. Now he was dying and no one could save him. What of the alliance? Asked another voice. If the prince dies, will King Vordan honor the treaty? Tormund's mandibles clicked in what Rin had learned was the Krillian equivalent of a grimace. The king has not said, but we must assume the worst. Without the Drexian fleet, we cannot hold the border worlds. The Vector will push forward. We will lose Terminus 7, then the outer colonies, then we negotiate surrender, Krell finished quietly. The room erupted in argument. Delegates shouted in a dozen different languages, their translator devices all competing to be heard. Some argued for continuing the war even without the Drexians. Others insisted that surrender was the only logical option. A few suggested abandoning the border worlds and fortifying the core systems. Rin barely heard them. Her mind was racing. She thought about Earth, about the stories she had heard growing up. Humans were good at one thing that most aliens found baffling. They did not give up. Even when logic said something was impossible, humans kept trying. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a disease that should have killed her. The doctors on Earth had given up, but one physician had not. He had tried an experimental treatment, something old-fashioned and risky. It had worked. "Request permission to speak," Rin said. No one heard her over the shouting. She tried again, louder this time. "Request permission to speak." The general's translator finally picked up her words, and he raised one of his forearms. The room slowly quieted. All eyes turned to Rin, and she felt her face grow warm. She was the youngest person in the room and represented the newest species in the coalition. "Ambassador Rin of Earth," Tormund acknowledged. "You have the floor." Rin took a breath. "I request permission to contact Earth Medical Corps." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then someone laughed. It was a Drexian military officer, his scales a deep red. "The humans? Their medicine is centuries behind ours." "Millennia," corrected Relkoth, his light pulsing with what might have been amusement. "Earth does not even have basic cellular regeneration technology. Their physicians still use chemical compounds and manual surgery." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Rin felt her cheeks burn, but she kept her voice steady. "Our physicians have experience with unknown toxins. Earth has millions of different species, and our doctors have learned to—" "Enough," Tormund interrupted, not unkindly. "Ambassador Rin, I appreciate your species' desire to help. But the prince is beyond help. We have tried everything. The Luminars have technology that can rebuild bodies at the molecular level. The Krillians can map every neural pathway in real time. If we cannot save him, your primitive medicine certainly cannot." "With respect, General," Rin said, and she was surprised by how calm her voice sounded. "That is an assumption. You have not tried our methods." "Because your methods are obsolete," Krell chimed in. "No offense intended. But humanity abandoned advanced medicine for techniques that have not changed in centuries. You still use knives to cut open bodies. You still rely on natural immune responses. These are proven," Rin interrupted. She knew she was being bold, perhaps too bold, but something inside her would not let this go. "General, you said the toxin adapts to every treatment. What if it only adapts to advanced technology? What if a simpler approach could work?" Tormund regarded her with his compound eyes. She could not read his expression, but his mandibles stopped clicking. "You truly believe this?" "I believe it is worth trying," Rin said. "The prince is dying anyway. What is there to lose?" "His dignity," snapped the Drexian officer. "He deserves to die in peace, not be subjected to barbaric experiments by a species that has barely left its own solar system." Rin opened her mouth to respond, but Tormund raised his arm again. "The decision is not ours to make. It is the king's. I will present your request to King Vordan, Ambassador. But I warn you now, do not get your hopes up. No one can save the prince, not even your humans." The council session ended shortly after. As the delegates filed out, Rin stood alone, wondering if she had just made a terrible mistake. But deep down, she knew she had done the right thing. Humans did not give up, not ever. She just hoped Earth would answer quickly.